Hello, 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 and welcome to the visual podcast. And Sarah appeared. My name is Sarah. I had to pause to make sure that I was even like recording. Um, but yeah, like I was just thinking about, I was thinking in terms of like, what are deal breakers? If this, then what? Like, what are deal breakers in regards to relationships? Because for someone like me, and I'm in the process right now where like I'm literally being educated about, dealing with relationships, the importance of relationship dynamics, the importance of obtaining and retaining relationships. And I think when you've gone from so many years or seasons of having strange, obscure isolation and having breakdowns in relationships when it comes to, friendships or a love interest, whatever or whether it's a platonic relationship, whatever the placing of the relationship is, um, I'm in this mode of learning and unlearning, how to approach relationships and how to respectfully, safely exit them, and what to do and how to voice my opinion and give my reasoning and my rationale and like just learning how to do life. And I know that sounds so alien. I know that sounds so alien. Like, okay, at this big old age, what is it that you just don't understand? But I think, like, every day we have to learn a different aspect of life, and the only thing that is constant is change. And so I honestly have gone from this very robotic, just automatic routine way of being puppet stringed to now I'm on my own. I'm getting my sea legs. I'm literally learning how to walk on land. And there's a couple of scrapes and bruises and snares that you get caught up in because you don't read the signs, you don't do what you're supposed to do. You're not, paying attention to the path that you're on. And I believe it's important when to take accountability when it's you that is the one that has caused the error or caused the misstep or went off of the path. I think, you know, there is a level of accountability that goes back on you, the individual who's experiencing this vehicle of life. But I also believe that there's accountability on some individuals. Like with me, if I'll give this example, if a young child came running up to me and was hysterical because they had a bloody nose, we know that the bloody nose is not going to last. And in fact, I know what to do to be able to stop the bleeding from happening, but also I have to be able to calm the child down. The child might be screaming, hysterical, kicking. They might have their mouth full of blood now. There might be saliva everywhere. They're crying so hard that they're starting to cough and it's causing them to want to like vomit. And it's like you have all these alarm systems on this kid that's going off. It's like the bop it uh toy. Bop it, slap it, turn it, spin it. There's all these things that you got to do to try to capsule this individual, this person, this other being, and calm them down and let them know, hey, it's really not that bad. You're freaking out because of what you see, but from what I know, you're going to survive this. It's like literally surviving the nosebleed. And I think that's kind of how my relationships have been, because I never knew how to intelligently go about doing any kind of relationships. And I always thought, because I lacked in, I would say, like a prose of life. Like I lacked in character, how to nourish myself, love myself, set up boundaries, and say what is non-negotiable and what is here to stay. Um, and what's something that can be flexible. And so because I never did have that skill set, I just always thought I was at the beck and whim and the call of the um the other party. And being that um boundless, not having any kind of boundaries or restrictions, being that open and not really caring about the state of who you are as a person, it will do two things. One, if you're not aware of it, it can leave you prey into the hands of, you know, some not some situations that don't have the best intentions. And two, if you are aware of it, but you choose not to do anything to fix it, you're actually putting unrealistic pressures and obligations on the other party, and they necessarily didn't sign up for that. Either way, whether you're aware of these behaviors or not, the behaviors are your fault. And you're going to have to do something, which here's your come to Jesus moment. You're going to have to go to Jesus and say, I need this, like, out of me. We got to get to the root of this. I don't even know. I need to hear from you because I have no clue what's wrong with me. All I know is I keep getting hurt, or all I know is there's it's different people, but it's the same spirit. What is wreaking havoc on my relationships? And usually when it comes to a pivotal moment in my walk with Christ, the answer is always conveyed within. Instead of always projecting outward and saying, why do they keep hurting me? The real question is, why do you keep abandoning yourself? And what is this void that you're trying to fill? And why is Christ not good enough? And why do you always leave him behind? And why is it that you only run to God when there's a crisis? And why is it that you're not as trusting in him, but you trust in situations that are outside of his power? And the only way that you're able to be rejuvenated or get any power yourself is when you go to him as your source. So why do you constantly abandon your source and you look for the answer outside of you when I dwell inside of you as the living Holy Spirit of Christ? I dwell inside of you and you completely abandon me. And now you have no concept of what I am saying for you in this moment of your life because there's no room to hear me when you're not focused and meditating on me. You don't even know what I say about you or what I am currently saying or singing over you right now. What is going on? And that is where the variable of chaos comes in. And I really had to check myself and I really had to sit back and say, you know what? You're leaving Christ out of the consciousness and you're being like extremely led by your feelings. And because your feelings are clouded and they're toxic, because you're still going through a rejuvenation, a refining, and you're going through a spiritual detox, there's going to be um deceit that are in your feelings because your heart is deceitful and your heart is wicked. So now you can't hear what God is saying, and you're listening to everybody outside of yourself and making rash decisions. You're making decisions based off of illusions of grandeur. Your fears are more grander than your faith. And so, what you're ending up with, the end result is you're worshiping your fears, but you're not praising God through your faith. So you set everybody up to have this bottom bar expectation. You don't expect anything to be great because you've never experienced anything to be great, and everything has been just a beautiful letdown. You prepare yourself for the worst because mentally that's all you can conceive. When that's the problem, stop allowing the thoughts to dictate what God says is already for you. Because God does not do anything that makes sense. And He doesn't need your permission for it to make sense. He's God. It doesn't, a volcano doesn't make sense. It's dangerous. It can kill everybody around it, but it's God. And it's Him just showing off that He can take the most obscure, dangerous, untouchable, like, threat, and He can serve a greater purpose out of it. And that's kind of where I had to go through. That's kind of what I had to sift through with my volcano of emotions. I mean, I was just like silently erupting for so long that eventually it just erupted everywhere. And for the end of the year, starting brand new, I have I have needed help more than anything this year. Like, more than anything, I have needed help in the way of my emotions. In I've needed help in every aspect, in every facet of my understanding. It's like I feel that there's a real veil of darkness that has been lifted off of me, and I can breathe, and I can see some of the things that I had partaken in and done, and I'm like, I understand where that came from, but that still does not excuse what happened and what role I played in it. And that's honestly demonic influence. But aside from the whole devil made me do it thing, it's also just how toxic I was as a person and how toxic I can get. And I really had to get to the point where I was like, I'm tired because I don't have any functional relationship that I can reach out to at this point in my life, but that's because of the level of oppression and toxicity that I operated in. And that is the consequence of not living a completely submitted life. Not living a completely submitted life, you know? And so there are certain practices and things that we do that we've learned about in our faith, in our tradition, and they help us. But your practices have to serve a purpose. There has to be an end goal to why you're doing what you're doing, and the end goal has to align with what God would have for you. It's kind of like, it's really it's really deceptive to use a tactic of God, of the kingdom of heaven, for your own selfish gain or for your own train of thought. When God does something through us, He does it to have a domino effect in somebody else's life that we don't even know we're going to affect. God is concerned about my issues. God is concerned about who I am and who I am becoming, but He's more concerned about the people's lives that I have to touch. He has to do a work in me so that I can be able to work out His plan. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, but thy kingdom can't come if the worker is not willing to work. If I'm not willing to do what God is saying, if I'm resisting everything. And sometimes that resistance is from demonic oppression. I've had my fair share of literally being released of things that I literally did not have control over, and also being released from things that I did have control over that I didn't want to accept responsibility from, so I blanketed my trauma over. being released from certain manipulative tactics that you didn't know you were operating in is the best feeling ever. Along with that, trusting in God, totally the best feeling ever. Admitting when you're wrong and apologizing. In this moment, I'm apologizing for every life that I've affected in a negative way, from this year, any life and every life that I honestly disappointed, came against. Okay, I think we're still here. I apologize for every life that I disappointed, came against, fought against, acted out against, because that's not my true nature, but that's who I was. That's honestly who I was, but that's not my true nature. I lost myself. I allowed the trials of life to really rock me. And I thought that I was okay because I had medicated with cannabis, and I was medicating with food I was eating, and I felt as if, hey, I'm not going off on people, popping off on people. There's nothing wrong with me. What's going on? It wasn't the fact of going off on people. It was what was hidden underneath me, and relationship had to highlight it out of me. And although there are times and occasions where I still um, have to go back, I have to reflect, I have to look and see, like, what was that, and how is that affecting me. I apologize to everyone that I spazzed out on. I apologize for what I did while I was literally choking on my trauma. It was years of um, untreated mental illness, but also untreated emotions, and also being a toxic person, but not knowing the level of my toxicity because I never unleashed it. I never let it out. I never worked through it. I didn't know I was being choked out by trauma. I was being choked out by um, bad decisions. I was being choked out by mediocrity. I was being choked out by hatefulness. I was being choked out by comparison. Low self esteem was choking me out. And these aren't excuses, these are explanations. Because there's no excuse for becoming the villain that villainized you. There's no excuse for it because it's greater is he, but that is in us than he that is in the world. But I have to say this, having my human experience and having it in the public way that I did freed me from a lot of self stigmatization. And I still have things that I have to work through. It's a work in progress. It's my, you know, shyness and people pleasing and different things that I still have. God still has a plan for me because there's still a work that has to be done through me. That's not something that's going away. That's not something that's going to change. So thank you for joining me on this journey. I can't wait to see what 2023 has in store for all of us. I know it will be a lot better to us than what 2022 was. And encourage people who are quiet, reserved, or who always have kind of the same characteristic, calm, cool, collective. Encourage them to use you as um, a place of safety so that they can be able to unload. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to love. And wherever life takes you, whatever the destination is, don't get off the plane too early. Bye for now.